Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Garrett and welcome to the cage. Today we're taking a look at the D-pad controller made by Hori. Question is, what's it for? Who's it for? Should you buy it? Should you wait for a sale or should you just skip it altogether? Well, hopefully by the end of the video, you'll find out. So the Nintendo Switch has been blowing up in recent time and we're seeing tons of games, new, old, being ported to the Switch, brand new titles, and a ton of 2D platformers. So that's kind of where this comes into play is for people that are looking for that old D-pad situation that makes those 2D platformers either feel more nostalgic or just run a little bit better than the buttons. So in comes in Hori. They made these D-pad controllers, not a Joy-Con, to hopefully satisfy that need of a D-pad. Now, why didn't we call this a Joy-Con? Well, there's some internal differences here. As you see here, this is the Legend of Zelda edition. It's got a nice paint job to it, actually. And the translucent body looks really sharp here. I'm going to try to get it in the light so you can see a little better. There you go. That's a good look. You can see through it, actually. But yeah, they also come in a Pikachu edition that's still darker smoke body and Pikachu lightning bolts on it. And then a Super Mario one. It's got red stripes across it and everything. And for 25 bucks, it instantly you're looking here and going, that looks really sharp, Garrett. But why is it only 25 bucks? Well, the main thing is, again, this is not a Joy-Con. This actually has all the wireless stuff ripped out, the HD Rumble ripped out, and it has no buttons here because it's only available in handheld mode. So if you're a person that plays in dock mode or tabletop mode, this device will not work for you unless you are playing it in handheld mode. So if you're like me and using a lot of handheld mode, this may not be a bad option, but it's one of those things that you have to understand right from the get-go. I can't unplug this and control my Wii at all. No wireless, no rumbles. So when you open up your Hori box, you're going to be greeted with a beautiful paint job, honestly. Instantly, you're looking at this going, wow, that looks really good. But as soon as you touch it, you're going to feel a difference than the plastic made on these Joy-Cons. These feel solid. It feels like a very high quality plastic, where here, it almost feels a little too cheap, and it's a little off-putting. Now, once you get by the feel of the plastic, how are the buttons? Well, to start off with, your bumpers and your trigger feel great. They're a little clicky, and you can kind of hear it here. And that's because of how they make them. Not quite as clicky as these. Still there, but not quite. These definitely have a great feeling to them, in my opinion, and really don't experience any differences while playing games with them. The actual joystick feels amazing. I honestly feel like it's the exact same joystick as that's on the normal Joy-Cons. And also your buttons that are normally SR and SL are not here. Obviously, again, this can only be used while plugged into the Switch, so there's nothing there. And the D-pad is our big question here. How does the D-pad feel? It feels pretty good. Actually, it has great feedback. No extra clicking, as you guys can hear. Just normal use on there. And overall, feels awesome and works very responsive from what I've been playing through. Your buttons that you're going to have issues with are going to be your share button and your select button up here. These feel a little gummy or rubbery, whatever kind of term you want to use. To be honest, I had to look up what this button was. I had to press it a few times. Like, oh, it's the capture button. I don't use the capture button honestly, so for me that's not a big deal. And after a few presses, you really forget about the gumminess of this one until you go back to the standard Joy-Con. The big question is, how well does it work inside games? Well, I've tested this out using Flint Hook, done a bit with the Mega Man Legacy Collection, Dead Cell, and I'm looking at my list here, The Missing, I tested it out with, and actually a little bit of the Sega Genesis Collection. And it worked fairly well. I didn't really notice any differences in game, like lag or even sped up, but it feels a little more natural in the 2D games. On top of that, you get that little more nostalgic feel and look when you're using a D-pad versus the buttons on the Joy-Con. So the other question is, how well does it work in non-2D games? I tested this out using Smash Brothers, Stardew Valley, Don't Starve, and Diablo, and a few other games in there, but those are the major ones I tested out. A little bit of Breath of the Wild as well. And overall, I didn't get a bad feeling from it, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it in things like Smash Brothers. It just didn't flow as well, and I found myself maybe just not pressing the right buttons as often. I'm sure if I got used to it, it would work fine. But personally, using the old style Joy-Con is wonders in that game. However, things like Stardew Valley and Don't Starve, it worked fairly well in, especially navigating menus. I seem to do it a little bit easier with that one in Don't Starve, and overall, I didn't have a bad experience using it. So to be honest, I play a majority of my games in handheld mode. The only time I really play in the dock is when I'm recording, and I never play in tabletop mode. So for me personally, it is a good buy. I really have no arguments with it. Again, it does feel a little cheap, and yeah, I can't use wireless if I wanted it. But for the little bit it adds in there for the D-pad, plus the price, it's not a bad buy. And it doesn't look bad. Here it is on my Switch right now with the green right Joy-Con. And actually doesn't look too bad. It's a little different looking, not to be fully off there. But the great thing is I can easily swap it out if I don't need the D-pad anymore. One thing to note, there was a time period that Hori had a battery drain issue while this Joy-Con was plugged in. Even while the device was asleep, it was draining batteries. So as of Switch version 6.0.0, that seems to have been cleared up, according to Hori. And personally, I've not really experienced any more or less drain, maybe just a slight drain more than my normal Joy-Cons, but overall, no real issues that I can find on that. So the question boils down to, is this a good buy for 25 bucks? In my opinion, I'm happy with my purchase. Once I got used to the cheaper plastic feeling of it, the D-pad feels great, the joystick itself feels great, and again, I'm a big player of games in handheld mode. Having those options is always a plus to me, and if I don't want it, I can easily take it off without much troubles. It slides off just like any other Joy-Con. Button in the back, slides up. Pretty easy. On top of that, I love the paint job on this one, especially. I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan, so seeing this paint job just makes me smile because it just looks good. On top of that, the Pikachu and the Mario one both look good as well. And this isn't just some cheap knockoff or cheaply made product. This is Hori, and this is an official licensed product. So Nintendo worked closely with these guys to make this controller functional. Will we ever see an official product from Nintendo with a D-pad? Maybe. But until then, I think for 25 bucks, you can't go wrong. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Are D-pads necessary on the Switch? Are you okay without them? Have you gotten used to the button aspect on the Joy-Cons? Or is this something that you guys would be interested to see Nintendo officially launch? I want to hear from you. Leave it in the comment section below. And on that note, till next time, you guys, stay frosty.
A lot of great